many of you, this is your first time having a child go through the high school? Wow, okay. All right, good. All right, I just want to get an idea of the sense of the crowd this evening. Our goal this evening is to give you an idea of the counseling department, our related services, and also for all of you who have an opportunity to meet your child's counselor. We're going to talk briefly in a large group setting, and then we're going to break down by counselor in small groups, so it'll give you an opportunity to, number one, meet your child's counselor a little bit more, and also answer any specific questions that you may have at this time. In our school counseling department, we have 5 counselors. I am one of the 5. And just like in the middle school, your child will be with that same counselor for all 4 years. This allows you to develop a relationship with your counselor and really get to know each other going out through high school. So at this point, I'd like to introduce some of the other counselors. To my left is Gary Munier. Then we have Diane Chorizo, aka Miss Real, if you're at any upperclassmen. Then we have Ariel Line and Nancy St. Clair. And if you are not sure who your child's counselor is, do not worry. I have the full list here, so you can come up to me at the end and I can tell you exactly who you need to go to. In addition to the counseling staff, we also have some other important members of our department who help us out throughout the year who are not here this evening. One of them you may already know, and she is Mrs. Megan Skelton. She is our social worker. She is split between the middle school and the high school, so that's why some of you have already heard her name through the middle school. She is here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at the high school, and she can be reached by calling the guidance main line or by emailing her as well. Okay, so she also, if you're not familiar, our school social worker meets with students individually for various reasons, but she also does a lot of our student groups, and I know she's in the middle of getting some of those going. In addition to Mrs. Skelton, we have Dr. Angelo DiTacco, who is our school psychologist, and he is located in our counseling office as well, and he can be reached either through email or through our guidance main line. And he sees students for various reasons. He also does some testing and is a lot of important member of a lot of our meetings and team meetings. Some other names of people who you will get to know as we go throughout the years a little bit more. Mrs. Maria Gregory is our guidance secretary. She is the one who answers our main line, and she makes appointments for all of you and for all of your children who would like to make an appointment with their counselor. So that is one line of communication of getting an appointment with us. She is a very important member of our department. Also, some of you have also probably heard from or maybe had a conversation with Mrs. Nancy LaMarco. She does attendance, among other things. So if there are any times issues with attendance where you need to call your child out, or you got a phone call from the automated call this evening before and you need to clarify that, she is the one that you call in the attendance office. Also, lastly, Mrs. Wheat Osinski, she's our registrar. You guys will get to know her as you go through the years more and more. She does a lot of our testing, and she's also in charge of processing all of our college applications. So by the time senior year comes around, you and your children will definitely know her well. She was responsible for helping us process over 1,500 college applications last fall. So she definitely has a big job and a lot of responsibility here. So she's another important person on our team. One topic that I'd like to discuss before handing the mic over to my other colleagues is PowerSchool. Hopefully, all of you have received your username and password for the parent portal and have tried to log on. If you haven't, you can please contact your child's counselor and we can get you that information for you to do that. PowerSchool is going to be a very important way. I'm sure you guys used it a little bit last year, but it's going to be more and more important, especially going throughout high school, for you and for your children to log on and check on their academic progress throughout the quarter and throughout the school year. Actually, today is a very important day. I don't know if everyone is aware, but today marks the midpoint of the first quarter. So we are halfway through the first quarter as of today. So traditionally, before Power School, we would mail home interim reports. And that would give you an idea of an average or grade of where your child stands in various courses. Since everything is online, we are encouraging everyone to look online, and actually you get a lot more information online than you did from those paper reports. If anyone's not familiar or has not gone on to the parent portal, one of the nice features is when you see your child's grade on there, it's a blue hyperlink. You can click on it and it'll give you the information on how that grade was calculated. It'll show you the tests or the quizzes or the papers or the homework that may have been missing, or certain scores on certain assessments. So parent portal definitely going to be very important moving throughout. Also to note, I did mention today is halfway through the first quarter. The first semester is going to end on October 29th. So if you think about it, it's kind of definitely going by, okay? So I know you guys are used to working on a trimester system. Here at the high school, we work on a 4-quarter system. Okay. First quarter, semester, sorry. All right, we have a 4-quarter system here, and the first quarter will end on October 29th. And one last thing before I turn the mic over, I do want to mention our school counseling website is located on the Weston High School site. If you go to Weston High School and click onto School Counseling Department, there's a lot of information for all of you there for various grade levels. It has information about standardized testing moving forward. It has information about college and career planning. It has a lot of important links to other sites that will be very helpful for you going through from freshman to senior year. So I would encourage all of you to take a look at it. I know certain people are interested about learning about certain topics at different times. So that's a definite way of looking at all of the resources available for you on that website. Also, as another piece of communication that's new this year, hopefully you guys all received our first installment of our monthly newsletter. We will be sending a newsletter out the first week of every month, talking about little things for each grade, something to be coming up, something to be looking forward to. So for example, we're working on October, and that will be out shortly, and a lot of that is going to be focused on probably PSAT and our special schedule for PSAT, as well as the freshman ADL assembly is going to be on that same day. So that's going to be some of the stuff that's going to be in October's newsletter. So if you guys are not getting the newsletter, please email your counselor so we can check the email address that we have down for you, because again, this will be another great way for us to communicate with you. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Minier.
Good evening. You've survived so far half the first quarter. We usually do this after we've already met with them, and we've met with your kids through health class, and they've had an introduction to us, et cetera, in the department. They come down and see us, and then we break up, similar to what we'll do tonight, in small groups. So we get a sense of what they're experiencing, and it's different with every year. And some of the differences this year, I think you'll be happy to know that probably the number one difference they pointed out to us is that the food is better here. So start thinking about like what's important to a ninth grader, and we heard in group after group after group, what's different? The food's better here. I'm going to tell you a little bit more than just about the food. There are some obvious differences here. If your child is coming home and asks questions, or you hear them overhear them talking with their friend, and they're asking what day it is, they haven't forgotten the days of the week. We operate on an 8-day schedule. It's A day, B day, C day. So when they're asking what day it is, and we do the same thing, it's really the structure of the day and the way the schedule works. They don't need to memorize it, just encourage them to use their planners, but it's a substantial difference than what they're sort of used to. The kids were talking about athletics. They're more tired than they were playing athletics in middle school. Obviously, there's a philosophical shift in athletics here. I coached the varsity boys tennis team in the spring. There's a whole different sort of philosophy sometimes. Not everybody gets to play in the varsity lineup. It's sort of, you have to earn your way there. So there's a big difference there. Kids pointed out the average age in the building is much older. They're not king of the hill anymore. They're looking up. But most of them absolutely enjoy that. So there are a lot of different things that go forward. What I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about is that the differences that aren't so obvious. One of the things you're gonna see is that when it comes to the academics, the decisions around here tend to focus more on the student's performance and less on the student's potential. So as you start moving through, the first semester is very important for freshmen, we've underscored that with it. As we start moving towards the recommendation process for sophomore courses, it's going to come to criteria in the program of studies, having the grades, etc. We've made some philosophical shifts in the past 14, 15 months where we're being much more inclusive, but their performance in the classroom is probably the most critical thing. The other thing, you hear a lot in terms of parenting. We've heard all the phrases, Velcro parents, helicopter parents, all that stuff. This is a high-end public high school. We are blessed with a very, very rich talent pool. And I think there's a message in there. I don't buy into the acronyms and sort of all the generalities that go with that kind of stuff. But I think what I do sort of support is that from when my own student went to high school to your student being here now, parenting has changed. There's more at stake. It's more complex. These kids have very different pressures in front of them as they go through high school. And so I think that's the piece that we need to pay attention to. And I think how we pay attention to it in our department is we really start to pay attention more to the student voice. And that's what we're going to ask you to think about. Sometimes when you get to be a junior, we're in the middle of making the sort of final academic adjustments for students in some of the upper level classes. I don't have to counsel the kid one way or other if he's in over his head at pre-calc honors. That kid will come down and say, this is not the right course. Even if we have, in many of the courses, the way you find out if a kid can do pre-calc honors is you put him in class. And some of those kids are in that situation. But I'm going to urge you to pay attention to your students' voice. The other thing, in terms of the difference of the high school that I would like you to sort of monitor, is as we're making a lot of these adjustments and as we discuss, where the adjustments are being made, etc. I have to monitor with my students and with my families to make sure that the conversation is evolving. Because at a school like this, where there is such a talent pool, there are lots of things that you will be exposed to over the next few years that are naviance, can be very sort of superficial, being driven by GPA, the number of honor courses, the number of AP courses, and we constantly have to monitor and protect to make sure that we're not pulling a kid from a class because it's difficult. And sometimes I don't want to pull a kid if he can learn and grow and learn a lot about himself and mature as a student because of exposure to rigorous material. I don't want to pull him just because he's going to get a B- and he's never gotten a B before in his life. And, oh my God, Mr. Meyer, are you kidding me? We can't get to school X if we don't have an outstanding freshman year. He has to get straight A's or she has to get straight A's. So we respect that that's sometimes the climate here. But when I hear helicopter parents, I don't like that phrase. But I do think you do inherit more responsibility because there is a lot at stake in those sort of outcomes if you talk about college and things like that. But there's nothing more important than the mental health of your kids. And sometimes getting an education at Weston High School is like drinking out of a fire hydrant. It comes fast and furious, and the 4 years are going to fly by. And that's where we're going to ask you to sort of lean on us. Because if you have questions, and the number of hands that came up when we asked you if this is your first kid was staggering, feel free to communicate with us. Feel free to communicate with us. Email us. You have to be patient sometimes. We go through some waves where there's a lot of traffic and a lot of kids waiting. Right now is probably one of them. But communicate with us, and there's no such thing as a silly question if you're a parent and it's your first time through high school. Because the one thing we know for sure, high school at Weston High in 9th grade this year has nothing to do with your high school experience. And we get the benefit of thousands of kids, and you've only got to look out for your own. So if we can assist you or support you in any way like that, we expect you to call, and you can remain confidential. We do that balancing act very, very well. I'm introducing Nancy St. Clair.
Thank you and good evening. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about communication protocols at school. In the end, our goal is for your child as a senior to be able to speak to teachers directly, to handle their own college applications, to advocate for themselves. We realize that this is a process and that there's a whole lot of, I would say, less freshmen than more freshmen are able to do that for themselves at this point. The ideal communication, if there is a problem with an assignment or difficulties with the class, would be if your student speak directly with the teacher. Do not, it would be nice if they didn't do it during a class, and we spoke about them, to your students about this during our orientation. Make an appointment with the teacher afterwards. Teachers are here before school and after school. If your student is unable to do that, the best way to do that is to communicate. It's fine for you guys to communicate with the teacher directly. I find that they respond very well through email, probably better through email than maybe even phone calls. The best way to communicate with us, I'm going to speak with us, and I'm going to speak for myself, is probably through email first. We can set up an appointment with you directly. If you're having difficulty getting through to us, you can call Maria Gregory at extension 1660, and she will make an appointment with us. We're a little bit different than the middle school in terms that the teachers are not set on teams. Your students are not on teams of teachers. At the middle school, the teachers would meet often to talk about who's giving what test on what day, what the workload was for students. We don't have teams here. So teachers are not checking with each other to see if there's a 10-page paper due, if there's 3 tests given on one day. So you'll need to be a little bit on top of that. We are finding, and I find that teachers are very, very open to rescheduling things if students are proactive or if parents are proactive. Again, in the best case scenario, it would be great if your student went up to his English teacher and said, I have an away game tonight, I was assigned a test tomorrow, I have a paper due, I have this, I have that, and more often than not, the teacher will say, okay, let's reschedule. But that becomes more of an onus on your student and yourself, rather than the teachers communicating with each other. And obviously, if you get in a situation where you really need to speak with us, give us a call. We're very available, but you agree email is the best, at least for everybody's shaking their head, yes. Email, to start, is the best way to do things. We don't hold automatic parent conferences. The parent conferences we usually hold are, I wouldn't want to call them fluff conferences. They're more if there's a concern, if there is a concern about a specific class, we'd rather you deal with us directly or the teacher directly. Oftentimes, though, and I'm repeating myself a little bit, but oftentimes, if you have a specific question about a class, it's easier for you to deal with the teacher directly, because if you come to us, we're going to go to the teacher, ask details. We may not get all the details. You may come back to us for more questions. So oftentimes, it's easier for you to speak with the teacher directly. Power School is a wonderful, wonderful means of communication. It's also a means for you to sit down and have a conversation with your student about goals, about how they think they're doing. We do, as counselors, we do have the opportunity to check to see how many times you've been on Power School. Sometimes, I know, after a student takes a test, 20 minutes later, we'll get questions about how the student did on the test. Just go a little bit easy on that, you need to give your student the opportunity to grow. We are here to assist you in any way possible. I think we encourage when you sit down with your student to talk about goals and academic goals and the next 4 years, I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Munier said. We're looking for their best effort as opposing and taking classes that are appropriate and rigorous, but as opposed to worrying about GPA at this point. The freshman year is an opportunity to explore, and we are here to assist you in any way. I'd like to introduce Ms. Wine.
Hi, welcome. I'm here to talk a little bit about Trojan Time and extracurricular activities. With Trojan Time, if you don't know, it's one of our school-based programs. Every student is involved in this. Students are paired out. There's about 15 students in a classroom in the same grades with an advisor who is a teacher. They will stay within this classroom and this teacher over the course of the 4 years. They meet about every other Wednesday. The purpose of this is that students have this way to make a connection with other students in their class that they might not have made a connection with at a different time. It also allows them to make a connection with another faculty member in the building. So different types of goals and things that we do for Trojan Time. Another goal is to kind of take a break in academics. You know, it is rigorous here, it is stressful. Every 2 weeks we try to do something that it may be a little bit around academics, but for the most part it's centered around something a little bit more at ease and fun. Everyone needs to take a break, students and faculty. So different types of things that we do. We just did something about goal setting for first quarter. What types of goals do you want to make? Let's make realistic goals. Also, we are going to do goal setting study skills for midterms. We are about to do Deck the Doors coming up for homecoming. It's a friendly competition between the advisories throughout the school where the kids are going to decorate the doors based on their theme. So we're going to have some fun with that. We also watch Trojan TV. Those are different TV episodes that we do. And talk about extracurricular activities, things that are going on in the school, and we just have a lot of fun with those. So they're about every 2 weeks. They vary from 20 minutes, 40 minutes, or an hour, depending on the advisory. One thing that we just did was the club fair. This is important. It's so important for your student to get involved at the high school. Studies show that the more involved you are outside of the school, the better you are inside of the classroom. So we have about 40 different clubs represented at this school. We have the students come down to the gym and go around and sign up for different clubs. So if you didn't hear about it, you can talk to your students about signing up for clubs because they all were there. This happened September 19th. So they were there, they were signing up. We encouraged them in the health classes that we had to sign up for clubs. Signing up as a freshman not only allows the students to meet other students in the high school, they have about 600 other students that they can meet, but it also allows leadership opportunities in the future as juniors and seniors, which we always like to see student leaders. So we encourage them to sign up. Even if you play sports or you're involved in theater, there is still time to do different clubs. They're very flexible. There are community service-based clubs, there's politician clubs. If there's a club that your son or daughter wants to create, they can create a club. So there's a lot of opportunity here for them to get involved. That's it. Now Diane.
Good evening. I'm just getting over a cold, so I have the fun part of wrapping up. Gary, you left out smother mother. That's my favorite term, personally. There's a lot of newbies here in the audience, but for those of you who don't know, I fell absolutely hopelessly in love this past February and had my first son. And for those of you who have, I guess, 13, 14-year-olds, it may seem like a long time ago, it may not, but it's just been an absolutely amazing journey. And every year when we put on a program like this, I try to put myself in the shoes of you. What are you guys thinking and feeling coming into this program? And this year, probably more than anything, I understand the inclination to want to keep your kids safe, to want to keep your kids happy, to want to keep your kids. But I can understand that this is a huge transition. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like 13 years from now. But I can understand the inclination to want to protect your child. And what I ask of you tonight, and I know it's hard, just as I am learning to trust the teachers who are at my son's daycare, as he gets over his first cold, that he shared with me, that you learn to trust us a little bit. We're going to be having some really tough conversations with some of your kids. We'll be talking a little bit more in a couple of moments about what our roles are, the code of ethics that we follow, the things that we have to keep confidential in our offices. And it's just one of those, you're just going to have to trust us. I hope that you will use all of the resources that are available to you, including us, our school social worker, our school psychologist,